government's actions are yielding any results. Our correspondent Rebecca Bandan joins us now from Mumbai. Rebecca, very good morning to you. And just looking at the study, yes, India coming up, it's a spot you actually don't want. You don't want to be first on this list. But let's go back a few years. And I think the issue coming to the fore, although it had existed before that, when we saw that horrid rape that happened on the bus of that young woman who was with a friend, and after that we saw some kind of uprising. What has happened since then in terms of protecting women in India?
Yes, that was back in 2012, and that's really, as you mentioned, when we started to see public outrage emerging, and we saw mass protests then. And since then, the government has taken a number of actions to try and to solve some of these problems. In fact, most recently, back in April, we saw more mass protests following the brutal and horrific rape and murder of an 8-year-old girl in the north of the country. And at that point, the government did introduce more stricter penalties for sexual attacks on women, up to the death sentence for the rape of girls under the age of 12, and stricter penalties for attacks on women. So there has been this progress that has been made over the years since 2012, and that's something that the government here has cited following this survey, which showed this worrying result of India being the most dangerous country for women. So the National Commission for Women and the Ministry of Women and Child Development did come out and criticise this. The ministry, in fact, has said it was an opinion poll, and it was an attempt to malign the country, when in fact there have been these steps that have been taken, and a lot has been done. And the National Commission for Women pointing out that, you know, how can India be ranked worse than countries such as Afghanistan and Saudi Arabia, where women do have far fewer rights? If you look at India, although there are these problems with brutal attacks and so on that have come to light, women do have quite significant rights here.
I mean, have they managed to give reasons, Rebecca, for why women feel this way, why the situation is the way it is in India? I mean, we understand, and traditionally, you know, India, a very patriarchal society. We know that, you know, from the time a girl child is born, we know traditionally we would have known what her future would have been, even if she was allowed to live, that was, if we have to go even further back. So the question is why, and that's probably where things need to change, is at the birth of a girl child and being taught how to treat her.
Absolutely. These are still very much problems today. If you look at the situation, there's still a problem of female infanticide, gender selection, and so on. That's still a major issue here. Then cultural traditions really do play into this, and that was something that was cited in the survey, the fact that you have issues such as acid attacks here. Then you have forced child marriage, forced marriages more generally as well. Human trafficking is also very much a problem still today. Forced labour, domestic slavery, again the issue of forced marriages, which also becomes a human trafficking issue. So these are not problems that have gone away. They're still very much there. It's something that's embedded in the culture and tradition, sadly. India being a patriarchal society, as you mentioned, although a lot of progress has been made and there are a lot of changes taking place, it's definitely still a problem. So I guess the hope is that with surveys like this coming out, it brings these matters to light. It's something that's now being talked about further, and that can hopefully result in further changes. But that is something that does take time when it is so embedded into traditions.
Rebecca, I'd like to get an idea from you as to how women, or what the reaction has been from women themselves on the ground, civil society there in India, since this report actually came out, and also since we saw, and let's go back to that incident in 2012 and that rape and attack on the bus, I mean, and those uprisings. How have women been standing up for themselves? Have they been doing it and getting noticed for it? And also, what has happened since this report came out earlier this week?
Yes, absolutely. So there has been this mass movement towards trying to get this issue recognised, the fact that women do face challenges in India, especially in certain parts of the country, in the north, where this is more of a challenge than it is, for example, here in Mumbai, which is a relatively safe city. So women here on the ground in Mumbai would generally say they feel safe compared to a city such as Delhi, where women really are very affected in their daily lives by the risk that there is in that city. So generally, it's been very welcomed by women who do want to see sort of more progress made and more being done, and this issue being recognised. So. I mean, as I mentioned, the government has come out with some comments in reaction to this opinion, what they described as an opinion poll, a survey, which was a survey of more than 500 experts, including policymakers, journalists, academics, and 40 of those apparently were based in India, in India itself. So this has been taken quite seriously, and it is something that the government will be looking at, and it may force the government to address this more closely now.
Well, thanks very much for that insight. ENCA's Rebecca Bundan there in Mumbai for us.